What do mirrors, wedding breakfasts, ménage a trois, and butterflies have in common? Look, let's just let's just get this over with. Cheerio, everyone. This is Dmovieman, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic, coming to you with reliable recaps, reviews, and reactions. And today, of course, I'm coming to you all with another episode of... Whew, alrighty. Yes, we are back for part 2 of season 3 of Bridgerton. Now, let me start by saying there were some improvements. There were some things I enjoyed. And at its core, like I said, Bridgerton is an enjoyable series. However, the foundation, the execution, a lot of things are not cutting it for me. So to start with some pros, I did appreciate, although the build-up to it was so lacking, I did appreciate that once we saw Polin and Penelope in their actual love connection, at least to begin with, that we had actual declarations of love. I loved when he stood up to Lady Featherington and took up for Penelope and, shut her down. And I just like seeing his dynamic with Penelope, actually seeing his connection with her in those moments where he would actually, just genuinely express his love. I'll have more to say about this next piece, but I thought it was actually really refreshing and actually surprising to me how rarely we see women like Penelope or Nicola Coughlan on screen in intimate scenes. I was just like, man, this should not feel like it is doing something, I don't know, not revolutionary, but the fact that it's doing something so unique, it's like, this should kind of be like the norm to an extent. And of course, I know why it's not. But still, I was watching that scene, I was just like, this really is not something we see. And I at least appreciate it from that standpoint, like, okay, we can actually show women of this size and stature as desirable. And it's not like larger women aren't desired and don't get into relationships and have intimacy and all kinds of stuff, despite what society tries to say. But it hit me like, this is just really not something we see. So I really appreciated that. I like the costume design. I think we have come a long way from season 1, because I just remember watching season 1 and I was just like... Usually when it comes to costume design, there's not a whole lot I'll really have to say negatively. There are people who have a good eye for costume design, so they can say what's not sewn well, what colors aren't flattering. I don't necessarily have that eye. However, I do know when some things just don't look quite right. And I will say, definitely in that first season, I was just like, these aren't doing it for me, especially after watching films like Emma and even television series that take place in the Regency era and seeing those designs. And so in comparison to that, it was just like, this ain't it for me. But I do think we have definitely seen some progression with the designs, a lot more embellishment, the color, the designs, and I think they really did their job with Penelope's costuming. I mean, all of her looks were on point. The colors, the embroidery, just the whole look, of course with her hairstyling as well. I loved it. She looked good. I thought so many of the women looked beautiful, and even have to say, there was just something really fun about Cressida's designs. And I think I read somewhere, or at least heard, that the design was intentional because she's becoming more and more desperate, and the fact that she is, trying to really, I guess in a sense, stand out, and she hasn't made a match, and so it kind of ties into her character arc or story arc, if you will, and I actually really enjoyed that. It just, and because I guess Cressida is such a ridiculous kind of quirky character, to me it worked. I just like seeing these big, massive, puffy shoulder pieces. I actually really, really enjoyed that. And speaking of Cressida, I kind of liked seeing her journey, There were some twists and turns I wasn't expecting with her, especially with the whole Lady Whistledown thing, because I didn't know we were going in that direction at all. And, just seeing some of the dynamics of that I thought was really interesting. I also have to say, I really enjoyed the Featherington family as a whole. Prudence, Philippa, and Portia, Lady Featherington. I've enjoyed them a lot. It just was a different type of scenario with Penelope being the center of attention and them not necessarily, more so Prudence than anything, but, not knowing how to really deal with that, and them not being used to really being the center of attention, and Lady Featherington having to, really rally behind Penelope in a way she hasn't before, which is unfortunate. But I also, speaking to that point, I loved, and I mean absolutely loved, the scene that Lady Featherington had with Penelope regarding, her marriage and everything that was going to happen. And it really hit home when Lady Featherington was explaining her experience with Lord Featherington and how that all came about in the first place. There's a point where Penelope asks, well, what about your dreams? And she was like, what dreams? Ladies do not have dreams. They have husbands. And it was such a moment, the way that line hits when she says that. And she has to acknowledge what her experience was. And even when she thought she was marrying for security and doing the right thing, it still blew up in her face. And so she really is making it clear to Penelope, like, you are very fortunate. You are very lucky. Value what you have, because I didn't have that opportunity. And I thought that was a beautiful moment because, we know with Lady Featherington and Penelope, it's really been a contentious relationship. But I thought there was something so beautiful and intimate about that scene, and so revealing, of course. Okay, so getting into everything that just does not work, and there's a lot of it, I'm going to try to go down this rather extensive list through, I guess, the couples. And it is going to pain me so much to say this. Will and Alice, why are they here? Why are they here? What purpose do they serve on the show? And the reason why it pains me to say that is because it is a Black family. I love the fact that we're having that representation, especially, and I understand this is a revisionist fantasy of the Regency era, but still, regardless, always want to see the representation of a Black family unit. And I love the idea of them suddenly coming into money and then not knowing what to do with it, and understanding the societal rules of, okay, you can't run your business, you got to get into the mix of having money, and you got to show up and show out, you can't work, and I think that would be interesting in theory, but I don't know if it's the writers. Well, that is a big part of it. But it's just like the writers just kind of threw that in there and didn't do anything to make it even remotely interesting. It's just like Will is just there, Alice is just there, and it's not interesting at all. It's just blah. It's like, in theory, I'm glad that they're still here, but you're not doing anything with them. And speaking of not doing anything with characters, Anthony and Kate, are you kidding me? How is it that almost everything about their relationship has been off screen? They were literally wallpaper this season. Yes, I understand the story isn't about them. They're not going to play, it's not about their love story. You know what I'm saying? It's about Penelope and Colin. I get that. But can we get something from them? It's we saw some nice moments between them. We see the love, but we don't see, we didn't get to see the wedding. We didn't get to see the honeymoon. We didn't get to see the baby, the baby moon or the baby shower or stuff. It was nothing. And I just feel the presence that Kate even had before, and I understand she's in love, so I'm not saying she has to be, I don't know, super sarcastic or biting, but it's just I want to see, or at the very least, I would have liked to see more of her dynamic with the Bridgertons. Now that she is an official Bridgerton, seeing her as a support system for, I don't know, Eloise, for Penelope, for Because I like seeing the moments when she was with the other members of the family and they referred to her as their sister, and the same thing with how Hyacinth got excited and hugged Penelope when she was like, oh, you're going to be my sister. Like, I want to even, give them something, but it was nothing. And all the things that we could have somehow tied into their story, it was just like, no, they're just going to be here. They're just here. So that was very frustrating. It's just like, they could have gone off with, not literally, but it's almost like they could just go off with Simon and Daphne if you're not going to do anything with them. I understand you want to continue the story, but you didn't continue anything. They were just there. And I didn't like that. Benedict. I mean, I alluded to it last season, but I have to face facts. What I basically think of Benedict is...
You are a non-mother factor, bitch.
Like, what are we doing? Like, again, I don't know how these characters operate in the story, but surely, Benedict can play a much more significant part in the story without just having him bouncing in and out of the bed. It's just like, my goodness. Do you serve any other purpose? Do you have any other aspiration? Yes, his storyline last season was dry, but at least it was something. Like, he was trying to figure out his passion in life, trying to figure out if he should be an artist or not. This is like, what was the point of this relationship? I don't care about him having another fling. I don't care about him having a ménage à trois. And even how that whole thing was presented, like it was some, like when he got in the bed and then just, oh gosh, it was so cringeworthy. Not even because of it's not even like oh, it's a man, like, it's the fact, because here's the thing. Let's take it back. I specifically remember season 1 where we had that whole situation with Sir Henry Granville and Benedict having a time at that big orgy. Let's just call it what it is. The big orgy party where everybody was just getting it in, get it from the back, get it from the side, get it with this one, get it with that one. Like, where, I mean, they were getting it in. So, and they had a whole kind of story arc, or at least conversations that Benedict had with that character. And the thing is, in the end, I kind of thought it was going in that direction, but then all of a sudden it was Madame Delacroix. And it was like, okay, well, not where I thought they were going, but that's fine. Let's subvert expectations and let's see how this relationship plays out. But then they immediately get rid of that relationship. Madame Delacroix is just like, okay, yeah, no, I got to focus on my business, deuce. And I'm like, so what was the point of that if you weren't going to do anything with it? And then now they decide that they want to now make it this like, oh, he's finally embracing. It felt so cheap and so goofy and so ham-fisted. It was just like, I don't care. And I don't even like saying that. I feel like that's even a phrase that gets on my nerves, but I genuinely did not care. I just like, Benedict, I need you to find something, and then even on the backside of things, like the writers, like, if you don't have anything for these characters to do, just have them in the background. But we can't have like 10 million subplots and it's not given anything. And these additional subplots and stories are taken away from the main focus, like Penelope and Colin. I feel like it was like this much that we got from Penelope and Colin. And then we just have all these random stories going on. It's like, I understand it's hard trying to balance because there are so many characters, but you got to know when to pull back. And it just feels like the writers and the showrunner nobody really knows what they're doing at this point. Or at least they don't know enough to be able to balance this. And as I've said before, I think it's really clear that Chris Van Dusen is responsible for the early success of this show. And I think it is showing everything that he contributed to this series is what made it so great in the beginning. And now that that's not there, it's just like... And And I promise, I'm not trying to knock Jess Brownell, and I'm sure she means well. And, you know, I like seeing a woman, you know, at the forefront of a series, of course. I'm always here for that. But you have to improve. Or if you're not going to improve on what has been done, at least maintain that. And that has not happened. It's just, I can't imagine what season 1 would have looked like if this is what we were working with. I don't know. Like, would season 1 have even... like lasted? It just feels like a cluster of foolishness at this point, and I don't really get it. And I suppose if I'm going to now circle around to Colin and Penelope, like I said, I like the fact that we had, you know, the moments of actual, you know, confessions of love, but we didn't get any real formalities as far as the proposal. We didn't get a real development of intimacy. I understand we had the mirror scene, but even that to me felt like they just kind of rushed into that. I'm like, oh, we're doing this already? Like, I had kind of heard some stuff about the mirror scene, but it's just like, why are we already doing this? It was just like, all right. Like I said, I appreciate the representation and just the fact that this is like, okay, yes, can we normalize this, please? I was totally fine with that, but it's just like, why are we... Like, why is this happening so fast? Like, can we get some kisses? Gosh. Like, can we get some kisses on the neck? Or, like, can we, you know, get some heavy petting or some touching? Again, and there it is. Build up, build up, build up. It's just like, that's the whole thing. Like, to me... Like, think about any show or any movie. What really sticks with you is when a story or a dynamic is like slowly but surely coming to fruition. You know it's going to happen. You know it's eventually coming together, but it's just like you're almost unsure. Like that's how the development is going. It's like something here, okay. Something there, okay. Something here and something there. So when we finally get down to the point where whatever this thing has happened as far as a story, and if we're going to use romance as an example, then, you know, the point when these two characters get together, it's fulfilling because it's like, man, we've been waiting on this. It's time. Like, let's go. Like, it's time for y'all to get together and make this thing happen. That was not here. It was just like, okay, I propose. Now let's get it popping on the settee. I was just like, I don't like it. And this is something I alluded to in my last video when I was talking about the optics of this season. I don't like the fact that when it's finally time for a character who does look like Penelope to get her moment, this is when you guys drop the ball. It just doesn't look good at all. And I'm not saying it was done with intention. I'm sure they probably thought like, oh, we're doing a great job. But I just feel like it was so important to really showcase the beauty of this love match, this relationship. And not just for the sake of Penelope being a bigger woman, because she's more than that, you know? But it is a beautiful thing to showcase that and to normalize it and to show like, hey, like that's not like, there's no stigma here. So I just felt like this was such a wasted opportunity to showcase that. Like, especially with a show like this that is so popular and has so much visibility. I'm like, this is when y'all decide to start like jacking things up and throwing things awry and not doing the actual romance justice. I was just like, oh, why? And it's so unfortunate that for a show that prides itself on that and these love stories that play out per season, that it's just like, this is what y'all thought was okay? I don't appreciate that. No. I also don't understand the point of trying to add some complexity to Cressida if this was going to be the end game. Now, I don't know if it's a coincidence that it was kind of like this halfway point, and like I don't know if anything was done differently or other writers got on board or what, but it was almost like they were starting to go in the direction of Cressida having to, like come to terms with herself and really take a look at the type of person she's been. And Eloise kind of being the person who, despite the pettiness of the friendship, is like, okay, you know what? Maybe there's more to this girl that I didn't see before. Maybe there's more to her and things can really change. And I would have been here for that. And I understand we had the Lady Whistle Down thing. And I do think that at some point, because Cressida was so like hell on wheels, right? I do think that you have to showcase the consequences of that and understanding that every story won't be a happy ending. But it just was weird to me. It's like I understand it because she has been an antagonist. I did not appreciate the stuff she did with Penelope, like ripping her dress and all that. But it just was like, what was the plan for that character? And is she like gone or are they bringing her back? So, yeah. So as interesting as Cressida was, I was just kind of like, what was the point if that was going to be the way you ended things? And now I may as well discuss the elephant in the room, Franchesca. And I guess the foreshadowing of her story next season. I'm really trying to think of what to say. So I was here for Franchesca and John, although again, the juxtaposition with Colin and Penelope actually took away time and development from Colin and Penelope. So it was kind of like, I like this, but I don't know if this fits. I understand the setup because I know some aspects of what will happen in that story. But when I saw Michaela, and then I saw Francesca's reaction to Michaela, I was like, okay, so we're doing this. Let me make something very clear. I do think it's possible to not, as someone who also is a huge reader, even something that's not to this extreme, there can be changes that are made and it's just like, why? You know what I'm saying? So I do think it's possible to be frustrated and annoyed and not understand why changes have been made without it necessarily leaning into racism and homophobia. Because I know that obviously comes to the forefront. I don't think that's everyone's immediate take. Now, some folks are just going to be ignorant and say whatever they can say because they can. And because now there's an opportunity to say like, oh my gosh, this, blah, 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 blah. That being said, I don't understand how, considering what I do know about Francesca's story, this is supposed to work. It makes no sense to me. And considering the depth of her story emotionally represents something that involves a man. Like, how? How, Sway? And even the moment of like, just corny. So cheap and goofy. It's just like, what are you guys doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? It's just like, that's like, my problem is like, okay, even if you're doing this, which is not necessary and doesn't make any sense, but it even be one thing if you're introducing the character and she's like, oh, okay, well, it's nice to meet you. But using this very obvious, like, oh, gee, what does that mean? Like, just good gracious, where is the subtlety? Like, bring on the sledgehammer. Like, good man. Like, and I will also say this, and this may not be a popular opinion, and I may have to say more thoughts and a deeper exploration for it for another video, but I just think it's interesting and questionable that the one dark-skinned black female character that will have a significant role in this story is being introduced this way. The same way that Lady Danbury and Queen Charlotte, the way that story played out, I'm just seeing some really suspect stuff when it comes to who plays what part in these stories and what that looks like for them. I don't like it. I don't like it. I'm really not here for it. Again, You have Benedict. Some people have even said you have Eloise. But doing this with this character...
What's the matter, Pop? I'm confused.
I mean, only time will tell if this change is going to be something that works. I don't see how, but like I said, only time will tell, and we have plenty of time to wait because apparently it's going to take 2 years until the next season. I'm just like, I don't know what you guys were expecting or planning for this show, but I don't know if it's going to go the way you think. They planned 8 seasons for this series, and I'm like, at this rate, I don't know if y'all gonna make a date. I just... I don't know. I don't know what to say. That's it. Like, I've rambled on. I've said a whole lot more than I probably should have said because, like I said, this season was just kind of a bust. There were fun moments, there were cool moments, but they were few and far between. The few moments I did enjoy did not add up to a fulfilling season. And there's that. So we have to see what the future of this series is. But as of now, even beyond, because I understand people want to make it about the whole Michaela twist and all that. It's just that from a foundational perspective, do you know what you're doing with these characters? Because it doesn't seem like it. And the whole thing with writing is you have to have a structure in place. You have to have something that serves the role of every character and every subplot. And if it's not, and if it doesn't work, then find something else to do with it. But as of now, it just feels like we have a bunch of characters and a bunch of stories that are there just because. And that doesn't work. So yes, that wraps up my thoughts on this so-called season of Bridgerton. So yes, with all that being said, please feel free to drop down below and give me your thoughts. I have a feeling some of you may share some similar sentiments with me, but then some of you may have enjoyed it a lot more, might have, it might have done it for you in some way. You appreciated some things and changes that they made, and that's okay too. Like, I'm open. It's not just one way. I'm open to all commentary, all thoughts. As always, please feel free to drop down and let me know down below. So, once again, this is Movieman signing off, and I'll see you with the movie.